Hey everyone, welcome back to another video of the Island House. So we are on chapter 4, finally. We are on page 43. So we are cutting in this book pretty fast. Really hoping that we get to finish the story soon. Because I really want to know how it turns out. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to get started. After putting on his running shoes, Dawson left the lawn for later and headed through a path in the grass and weeds toward the steps at the back of the property. Down 22 of them at the beach and once on the sand, Dawson stretched using the bottom stair. The scent of the morning sea air drove away any cares he had, and that was Charlotte. He had quite known what to do when she didn't text him last night, but all of his belongings were in the house, and he deserved to at least get those. At least that was what he told himself. Charlotte hadn't been anywhere to be found when he finally landed his bird and returned to the house. She obviously taken a room upstairs, and when he heard her heels coming down the staircase, he came out of his room. He had taken a bite or two of her croissant, which she left on the counter, and her skill in the kitchen had only convinced him that he wanted to stay in her house. Problem was, he was attracted to Charlotte Madsen, but the vibe he'd gotten from her was closed off, not available. Though he'd already checked for a wedding band and she didn't wear one, he pushed out his breath, wishing Charlotte's pretty face would go as easily as the air. He got his feet moving, focused on his breath, and finally it was just him, the sea and the sand and the sky, exactly the way he liked it. An hour later he stood in front of the shed, thinking Sinclair and Bridget had played a prank on him. Boxes lined the back half, and he wondered what in the world could possibly be in them. Thankfully, a lawnmower was closer to the front, and Dawson heaved it out of the shed. It took gas, but he didn't find a gas can in the shed, nor would the mower start. He thought it might be easier to simply go buy another one than try to turn into a mechanic and figure out what was wrong with his dinosaur. He knew some tricks to engine care from his time in the Air Force, but he didn't feel like doing the diagnostic work, which just to mow the lawn. He hopped in his Land Rover and headed down the road to the highway. The interesting thing about this road was that no one lived on it. Plenty of houses backed close to both sides of it, but they were in different neighborhoods with fences, and there were some forest areas as well. It almost created a small bluff over the beach, whereas most of the other properties went right down to the sand, no steps needed. He bought a lawnmower at the nearest hardware store and returned to the house to mark where the land was. He showered, then took a nap, and made himself a ham sandwich in the middle of the afternoon before Charlotte returned. "Grass looks great," she said when she found him in the living room. She collapsed into the couch facing the windows and kicked off her heels. "How did the interview go?" He tried not to stare at her, but he liked her pretty freckles and her hair that was several shades lighter than the coppery shade of a penny. "You know what? It went pretty good." She turned her head toward him and smiled. "I'm so tired that it can't still be jet lag, can it?" "I'm sure it can. Where did you come from?" "South Carolina." She closed her eyes and her breathing evened. Dawson wanted to ask her why she literally flew across the country and then the ocean to come to Getaway Bay when he had a feeling he already knew. She was escaping. After all, no one bought a house in this location in the condition it was in if they wanted people to know where they were so they could come visit. No, Charlotte wouldn't have guessed, which only made Dawson want to stay at her house longer. "What did you do before you come here?" she asked with opening her eyes. "I was a pilot in the Air Force." He sat up and she looked at him. "Really? Is that hard to believe?"